Welcome to the National University online class. During this pandemic, I feel proud to be the part of this National University online class lecture as a resource person. Please maintain the health rules. This lecture is for the students of Honours Third Year. We will discuss Elizabethan and Jacobean drama. And your paper code is 231101. Now we are going to talk about Macbeth. Before we discuss about the play, let us learn something about the writer. You know, William Shakespeare was an English playwright, poet and actor, and he is regarded as the greatest writer in the English language and the greatest dramatist of all time. Reliable information about Shakespeare is not always available. From authentic sources, we get limited information about him. From two primary sources, we get an outline of his life. One is his work, and the other is official documentation. From his plays, poems, and sonnets, we get an outline of his life, and from the records of the church and the court, we also get information about him. However, these provide only brief description of specific events in his life and give limited information about the man. There is no birth record of William Shakespeare, but we come to know about an old church record, and it indicates that a William Shakespeare was baptized at Holy Trinity Church in Stratford-upon-Avon on April 26, 1564. From this, it is believed that he was born on April 23, 1564. Shakespeare was the third child of John Shakespeare, a leather merchant, and Mary Arden. Mary Arden belonged to a wealthy family. Probably, William Shakespeare tried to immortalize his mother's family name in the Forest of Arden in As You Like It. It is believed that his father and mother could not write or read. He had two older sisters and three younger brothers. We do not find enough records about his childhood and his education. He probably attended the grammar school at Stratford, which taught the classics and Latin grammar. According to his contemporary Ben Jonson, William Shakespeare knew small Latin and less Greek. However, we know that his real teachers were men, women, and the natural influences that surrounded him. He married Anne Hathaway in 1582. She was from a small village a mile west of Stratford. At the time of their marriage, Shakespeare was 18 and his wife was 26. In 1583, their first child, a daughter they named Susanna, was born. 2 years later, in 1585, twins Hamnet and Judith were born. But Hamnet died of unknown causes at the age of 11. We have very little information about the life of Shakespeare during two major spans of time, commonly referred to as the lost years. There were no documented facts about the life of Shakespeare from 1578 to 1582, and this period is referred to as the first lost years. And the second lost years, that was from 1585 to 1592, there were only a few documented facts about him. There is a wide speculation on what he was doing during this period. A type of mythology developed around the years, and many people have their favorite version of the story. we come to know about a popular story that revolves around the relationship of Shakespeare with Sir Thomas Lucy. We know that Sir Thomas Lucy was a local Stratford-upon-Avon landowner. It is known that Shakespeare first dared from the estate of Sir Thomas Lucy, and it is also said that he fled to London in order to escape punishment. There is also another possibility, and that is he might have been working as an assistant teacher. Another possibility is that he joined one of the companies of players, and the company visited Stratford in the late 1580s. It is also thought that he became a soldier or was employed as a clerk of a lawyer. It may be that he was helping out with the family business. We come to know that by the early 1590s, Shakespeare was a managing partner in an acting company in London, and the name of the company was Lord Chamberlain's Men, and he was connected with it for most of his career. The company changed its name to the King's Men following the crowning of King James I in 1603. We know that the theatre culture in the then England was not highly admired by persons of high rank, but some of the persons of high rank were good patrons of the performing arts. And we know that King's Men, company of William Shakespeare, was very popular at that time. He wrote plays, sonnets, and poems. His works include some 39 plays, 154 sonnets, 2 long narrative poems, and a few other verses. His plays have been translated into every major living language in the world, and at the same time, they are performed more often than those of any other playwright. His works are very popular and loved throughout the world. Most of his known works were produced between 1589 and 1613. His early plays were primarily comedies and histories. Some of his well-known comedies are As You Like It, The Comedy of Errors, Measure for Measure, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Twelfth Night, and so on. King John, Richard II, Richard III are some of his historical plays. Until about 1608, he wrote mainly tragedies, and Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, Macbeth, and Romeo and Juliet are considered to be the finest works in the English language. We know that in the last phase of his life, he wrote tragicomedies. The Merchant of Venice, The Winter's Tale, The Tempest are some of the tragicomedies written by Shakespeare. His writings are known throughout the world. His writings capture the range of human emotion and conflict. He is often called National Poet of England. He is known the Bird of Avon. He died on April 23, 1616. You know, The Merchant of Venice is a play by William Shakespeare. It is one of the most frequently performed dramas. The date that Shakespeare wrote this play is uncertain, and for this reason, we have to depend on the scholars. Probably, the play was written after Shakespeare wrote Julius Caesar and Romeo and Juliet, but before he wrote Hamlet. In the year 1598, the play was mentioned by Francis Meres. It can be said that the play must have been well known by that date. However, the scholars generally try to place the play somewhere between 1596 and 1598. In 1598, the play, under the title The Merchant of Venice, was entered in the register of the Stationers' Company by James Robert. We know that at that time it was the method of obtaining copyright for a new play. The 1600 edition is generally regarded as being accurate and reliable. The rights of Jews in England were severely restricted like the other parts of Europe. In fact, King Edward I completely banished them from England in 1290, and until 1655 they were not allowed to return. This exile was effective during the time of Shakespeare, but according to the scholars, a few hundred of them still lived around London, and there they disguised themselves as Christians. We know that Renaissance Christians did not like them, and one of the reasons behind it was that they were willing to lend money at a high interest rate. But in classical and Christian moral thinking, there was a long tradition against this practice. The contemporary of Shakespeare, Sir Francis Bacon, who was a philosopher and statesman, argued in his essay on usury that it was against nature for money to beget money. Shakespeare could have used many possible sources in constructing The Merchant of Venice. The main source of this play was a tale in Il Picaron. It was an Italian collection of tales by the 14th century Italian writer Giovanni Fiorentino. It was written in 1378 and published in 1565. One of the stories in this Italian collection focuses on a rich woman who is living at Belmont. She marries a man who has a friend, and his friend borrows money from a Jew. He demands a pound of flesh in payment if the money is not paid back. He goes to court when the money is not paid in time. The rich wife speaks in the court of true justice and convinces the judge to refuse him his pound of flesh. Thus the life of the friend is saved. We find another story in the play, and that is about a riddle. Those who will come to win the hand of Portia will have to solve it. Probably this part of the story is from Gesta Romanorum. It is a book, a collection of stories, probably compiled at the end of the 13th century. In the Orator, written by Alexander Sylvan, elements of the trial scene are found, and in 1596 it was published in translation. The Jew of Malta, written by Christopher Marlowe, which was published in 1589, might have an influence on The Merchant of Venice, and it is necessary to mention here that Christopher Marlowe was one of the contemporaries of William Shakespeare. However, according to the critics, Marlowe was more ruthless and much less human than the Jewish character of Shakespeare. In spite of the controversies caused by The Merchant of Venice, it continues to fascinate its audiences. The characters are complex, leading to several interpretations of their personalities and actions. The play is harsh but fascinating, exposing some of humanity's greatest shortcomings. The play the merchant of Venice, tells the story of Antonio, who is a merchant. He agrees to loan money to his friend Bassanio. Bassanio needs money so that he can marry his beloved Portia. However, in his ships at sea, Antonio's money is tied up. To have the necessary amount, he visits Shylock, who is a moneylender. Though Shylock does not like Antonio, he agrees to lend Antonio the necessary amount of money. But there was a condition, and that is, if he defaults on the loan, he will demand a pound of his flesh. Antonio cannot pay the amount, and now Shylock is merciless. He demands a pound of his flesh. Portia dresses as a lawyer and saves Antonio. And Bassanio marries Portia. There is a debate if the play is anti-Semitic in itself or if the play is about anti-Semitism. While reading the play, you will have to go through several lines that are about hatred, dislike between the Christian and the Jewish, mistrust between them. The plotline of the play and the complexity that we discover in some of the major characters can easily draw the attention of the readers. The characters in the play have weakness. They arouse empathy, and the presence of weakness in the characters is necessary because it makes them human. The conflict between selflessness and self-interest that drives the plot and moves the play forward is the main theme of The Merchant of Venice. And this main theme has an influence on the main characters of the play. There are also other themes. They are greed, mercy, prejudice, and so on. We know that Antonio borrows from Shylock and he defaults on the loan. And for this reason, he has to sacrifice a pound of flesh. And this is the main conflict that we notice in the play. However, the quest of Bassanio to marry Portia and his attempt to make Antonio free from Shylock are the struggles in the play. However, we see that the conflict is resolved in favor of Antonio. Here, Portia plays a vital role. She says that Shylock will lose everything if he takes even a single drop of Antonio's blood. She says like that because this is not a part of the bond. The first scene of Act 1 of The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare opens in Venice. We come to know about Antonio, who is a merchant, and he has several cargo ships. He is in a melancholic state of mind, and at the same time he is not able to find a reason for his depression. We now notice the appearance of Bassanio, who is a friend of Antonio. After greeting one another, Bassanio tells Antonio if he can borrow some money. Bassanio has devised a plan, he says, by which he can pay back all his debts. He tells Antonio about the beautiful women in Belmont whose father was a king. He also adds that the father is dead and he leaves all his wealth to his daughter. Bassanio reveals that he has a plan to marry Portia. However, they must guess a riddle that Portia's father has devised. Bassanio needs to borrow enough money so that he can act like a true nobleman. He needs the money to buy new clothes to make a good impression. He needs money to sail to Belmont, and he needs money to try his luck to figure out the puzzle in order to win the beautiful Portia. Antonio tells him that he would do anything for him. However, all his money is invested in ships at sea. Then we see that he offers to borrow money for him. The close relationship between Antonio and Bassanio is remarkable in this scene, and it sets up the events of the play that will come next. The second scene is set in Belmont. Portia lives there. Here, the readers can hear that Portia complains about the will of her father. She stands passively and watches those who try to win her by guessing whose chest contains her picture. She is not permitted to choose her husband, and she is not able to deny someone, even though she is not attracted to him. It shows the helpless condition of Portia. Her servant maid, Nerissa, teases her. She tells her that the whole world should have the problems of Portia. Nerissa also tells Portia that her father was a wise and virtuous man. Some men have lined up to test their luck. Portia and Nerissa look at them. We see that both Portia and Nerissa privately judge them by their manners. They judge them by their appearances. They also make fun of them. Nerissa can remember a handsome man. He once visited Portia's father at Belmont. Then she asks Portia if she remembers the man. Portia recalls the man, who is Bassanio by name. According to her, she is very attractive and intelligent. We also observe the statement of Nerissa that she believes Bassanio is the most deserving of Portia among all the men who have come to Belmont. From the third scene of this act, we come to know that Bassanio meets Shylock in Venice. He asks him if he can lend him money. At the time of asking for borrowing money from Shylock, he mentions the name of Antonio. Then Shylock says to Bassanio that he is well informed about Antonio. He also adds that he knows that Antonio is a good businessman. He also mentions that shipping can be a difficult business because a ship can go down in a storm. However, we see that he is willing to consider the loan. In response to the invitation of Bassanio to Shylock to dine with him and Antonio, Shylock talks about the differences between the Christians and the Jews. Shylock tells that he will walk, talk, sell and buy with them, but he will not eat with them. He will not pray with them. Now we see the appearance of Antonio in the scene. Shylock states in an aside that he hates Antonio as he is a Christian. Then Shylock talks about the loan. He talks about the interest rate that will be charged, duration of the loan, and other terms that are necessary to lend money. Shylock criticizes Antonio. He reminds Antonio of the past. He reminds that Antonio used to say he would neither lend nor borrow money. Shylock also reminds him how he has insulted Shylock in the Rialto, the meeting place of businessmen in Venice. Antonio has called Shylock names and has also spit on him. Reminding him everything, Shylock finds fun in the fact that Antonio has come to borrow money from him. Then we come to know about the statements of Antonio. We see that he tries to make it clear to Shylock that this loan should not be interpreted in a way that he wants to be a friend of Shylock. He tells Shylock that they remain enemies and it will be the best for them. Then, if Antonio fails to return the loan in time, Shylock can have great happiness in the forfeit. Shylock mocks and tells Antonio that he lends this money to Antonio in friendship, and to prove it he will not charge him any interest. According to him, Antonio will sign a bond that will be written by Shylock. There it will be stated, if Antonio does not return the money in 3 months, Shylock can have his payment in the form of 1 pound flesh of Antonio from any part of his body, and it will be determined by Shylock. It greatly shocks Bassanio. He forbids Antonio to sign the contract, as he does not want this heavy weight knowingly. But Antonio wants to sign. He thinks that he will have tenfold of the amount he borrows from Shylock in 3 months. Shylock again claims that he loans this money in friendship. He again tells that what profit he will gain from a pound of flesh. In the first scene of Act 2, we are back at Belmont. There, we meet the Princess of Morocco, a king from northern Africa. He has come to try his fate by solving the puzzle. He meets Portia and tells her that on account of his black skin, he is considered very handsome. In response, Portia tells him about her helplessness, that she does not have the right to choose her husband. She also warns the prince. She tells him that if he chooses the wrong casket, he will have to affirm that he will never propose marriage to a woman afterwards. The condition is accepted by the Prince of Morocco. Then we find them to dine before the attempt of the Prince of Morocco. The second scene of this act is set in Venice. We meet Lancelot, who is a servant to Shylock. He is referred to as a clown. From the scene, we come to know that he has decided to leave the service of Shylock. We also come to know that he prepares to ask Bassanio if he employs him. Lancelot has not seen his old father for many years. He meets him, and at the same time, he urges him to go with him to Bassanio. There, we see that the father offers Bassanio some of his wares. He tries to make him agree to hire his son, and Bassanio agrees to do so. In this scene, we notice the appearance of Gratiano. We know that he is a friend of Bassanio. Gratiano wishes that Bassanio will take him to Belmont. Antonio tells Gratiano that he is very wild, rude and bold. Bassanio enjoys Gratiano at the parties of Venice. He is also concerned that Gratiano will not make a good impression on Portia in Belmont. However, the promise of Gratiano to Bassanio about his behavior in Belmont make Bassanio agree to take Gratiano with him. The third scene of this act shows the events that take place at Shylock's home in Venice. We come to know from the scene that Jessica, who is the daughter of Shylock, says goodbye to Lancelot. She tells him that she will miss him after he goes to work for Bassanio. But before the servant leaves, Jessica hands him a letter to take to Lorenzo, who is a friend of Bassanio, and he is supposed to be a guest of Bassanio that night. When Lancelot leaves, Jessica remarks that she is in love with Lorenzo, who is a Christian. However, in this way, she informs the audience. We also come to know that she intends to meet Lorenzo very soon, and if Lorenzo truly loves her and comes for her, she will become a Christian and will run away from her father's house in order to marry Lorenzo. In the next scene, we see that Lorenzo, Graciano, Salerio, and Solanio are preparing for a masque that night. They plan a small entertaining party for Bassanio that night. At this point, we notice the appearance of Lancelot with the letter from Jessica. He hands it to Lorenzo. Lorenzo reads the letter and tells Lancelot to inform her that he will not fail her. Lancelot leaves the place to inform Jessica. He will also invite Shylock to Bassanio's house for dinner. After Salerio and Solanio leave, Lorenzo shows the letter that Jessica sends him to Graciano. Now Lorenzo and Graciano plan how they will go into Shylock's house that night to steal away Jessica from her father, along with a great deal of her father's gold and jewels. In scene 5, we see that Lancelot returns at Shylock's house to invite him to eat with Bassanio. Here, we observe the conversation between Shylock and Lancelot. We see that Shylock tells Lancelot that he will have to judge for himself if Bassanio is a better master for him. Then he calls Jessica and he hands her the keys to the house and tells her that he will leave for dinner that evening. Lancelot tells Shylock about the masque of that night. At this news, he tells Jessica to stay away from the windows and to lock the doors. As Shylock gets ready to depart, Lancelot whispers to Jessica that Lorenzo will come for her that night. We can understand her gratefulness for the message. After Shylock leaves, Jessica comments, "I have a father, you a daughter lost." From the next scene, we come to know that Graciano and Salerio are part of the masque party through the spirit of Venice. They arrive at Shylock's house that evening. Lorenzo has asked them to meet him at a certain spot, and for this reason they stop and wait for Lorenzo. After arriving, Lorenzo thanks them for their patience. He then calls out to Jessica, and we notice the appearance of Jessica in the window of Shylock's house. She is dressed like a man. She throws out a casket to Lorenzo that is filled with gold and jewels of her father. Jessica again goes back inside and takes ducats before she joins the men who are waiting on the street. She goes with Lorenzo and the two profess their love for one another. Everyone departs except for Bassanio, who meets Antonio unexpectedly. Antonio advises him to get to the ship heading for Belmont. He advises like that because the wind has started blowing the right way and the ship is ready to depart. In scene 7, at Belmont, Morocco, the prince from northern Africa is with Portia. Now he is about to take the test. There are 3 caskets, gold, silver and lead. Portia tells him to make his choice, and he will have to choose one casket among the 3. We see him reading the inscriptions on the caskets, and at the same time, he explains them in his way. The first casket is made of gold. The note on the gold casket attracts him. He thinks that as the golden casket promises what many men desire, he chooses it. He thinks that the picture of a lady like Portia, who is beautiful and wealthy, could not have been placed in a casket made of silver or lead. However, as he has chosen the golden one, Portia hands him the key, and he opens the casket and reveals a skull. Now, the Prince of Morocco is disappointed and frustrated. he departs from Belmont. Portia watches him go. She feels happy, as she has got rid of a person whom she does not like at all. In the next scene, in Venice, Salerio and Solanio meet in the street. We see that they are talking about Shylock and his daughter Jessica. From this scene, the audiences come to know that Bassanio has set sail for Belmont and he has taken Gratiano with him. Shylock has come to know that Jessica is missing. The elopement of his daughter with a man who is Christian makes Shylock angry. He cried for his daughter and for the loss of his gold and jewels. He thinks that if he finds his daughter, he will also find his gold and jewels. It is clear to us that the elopement of Jessica has come as a great blow to the prestige and self-respect of Shylock. He goes to the Duke and tries to have the ship of Bassanio searched. However, Antonio affirms that Jessica is not with Bassanio. Scene 9 takes us to Belmont again. We see that the Prince of Aragon arrives in Belmont. He decides to choose from among the three caskets to try his luck in winning beautiful Portia. Portia takes him into the room, and there he promises that he will never reveal which casket he chooses. And he also promises that he will never marry if he chooses the incorrect one. The Prince of Aragon starts to read the note on the caskets. We see that he rejects the lead because of the warning, and he thinks that gold refers to the foolish people. He chooses the silver one, which indicates that he will receive what he deserves. The prince takes the key to open the casket. After opening the casket, he finds that the casket contains the picture of a blinking idiot. The prince is now upset by his choice, and he leaves Belmont. That the prince has chosen the wrong casket makes Portia feel happy. At that time, we find the appearance of the messenger of Portia. The messenger informs Portia that a young man from Venice has just arrived. Knowing it, Portia goes to see who it is. On the other hand, Nerissa wishes that it might be Bassanio.